So here is one extract from that, an excerpt. With equal time to plan his movements, he was not surprised when nothing went right. His arrival time was suitable, 11:20 p.m. Wednesday, May 10th. He had hoped to park illegally at the curb, just a few feet from the ground level door to his apartment, but other drivers had the same idea. The curb had never been so completely blocked with a line of cars, and to his anxious satisfaction, every one of them had a citation under a windshield wiper. So he could park in the street while he dashed back and forth, but that would invite trouble. So the small lot behind his building had four spaces, one reserved for him, but they locked the gate at 11. So he was forced to use a dark and almost completely abandoned parking garage 3 blocks away, a large cavernous multi-level that was sold out during the day and eerily empty at night. He had thought about this alternative off and on for many hours as he drove north and east and plotted the offensive. So it was the least attractive of all options. So that was plan D and or E. Somewhere way down the list of ways he wanted to transfer the money. So he parked on 11:1, got out with his overnight bag, locked the car, and with great anxiety left it there. He hurried away, eyes darting around as if armed gangs were watching and waiting. So his legs and back were stiff from the drive, but he had work to do. So the apartment looked precisely the same as when he had left it, which was an odd relief. So 34 messages awaited him. No doubt colleagues and friends calling with their sympathy, so he would listen later. At the bottom of a tiny closet in the hall, under a blanket and a poncho, and other things had been tossed in as opposed to being placed or stored. So he found a red Wimbledon tennis bag that he hadn't touched in at least 2 years. Aside from luggage, which he thought would appear too suspicious, it was the largest bag that he could think of. If he had had a gun, he would have stuck it in his pocket. But crime was rare in Charlottesville, and he preferred to live without weapons. So after the episode, Sunday in Clanton, he was even more terrified of pistols and such. So he had left the judge's guns hidden in a closet at Maple Run. With the bag slung over his shoulder, he had locked the door on the street and tried his best to walk casually along the downtown mall. So it was well lit, there was a cop or two always watching, and the pedestrians, people walking around, that's meaning for it, my input there. At this hour, we were the wayward kids with green hair and occasional vino, and a few stragglers working their way home. So Charlottesville was a quiet town after midnight. A thunder shower had passed through not long before his arrival, and the streets were wet, the wind was blowing. He passed a young couple walking hand in hand, but saw no one else on the way to the garage. He had given some thought to simply hauling the garbage bags themselves, just throwing them over his shoulder like Santa one at a time, and walking hurriedly from wherever he was parked to his apartment. So he could move the money in 3 trips and cut his exposure on the street. Two things stopped him. First, what if one ripped and $1,000,000 hit the payment? So every thug and vino in town would come out of the alleys drawn like sharks to blood. So second, the sight of anyone hauling bags of what appeared to be trash into an apartment as opposed to away from it might be suspicious enough to attract the attention of the police. So what is in there? The bag, a cop might ask. Nothing, garbage, $1,000,000. No answer seemed correct. So the plan was to be patient, take all the time that is necessary, move the loot in small loads, and not worry about how many trips might be required, because the least important factor was race fatigue. He could rest later. The terrifying part was the transferring of the money from one bag to another while crouching over his truck and trying not to look guilty. So, fortunately, the garage was deserted and he crammed money into the tennis bag until it could barely zip. Then slammed the trunk down, looked around as if he had just smothered someone and left. Smothered is like uh, almost tried to kill them with some putting a cushion over their face or something, cutting off their air or breathing. That's my input there for the meaning over there. So perhaps a third of a garbage bag, $300,000, so much more than enough to get him arrested or knifed. Nonchalance was what he desperately wanted, but there was nothing fluid about his steps and movements. So, eyes straight ahead, though the eyes wanted to dart up and down, right and left, nothing could be missed. Then, a frightening teenager with studs in his nose stumbled by, stoned out of his wasted mind. So Ray walked even faster, not sure if he had the nerves for 8 or 9 more trips to the parking garage. A drunk on the dark bench yelled something unintelligible at him. He lurched forward, then caught himself, and was thankful he had no gun. At that moment, he might have shot anything that moved. So the cash got heavier with each block, but he made it without incident. He spilled the money onto his bed, locked every door possible, and took another route back to his car. During the fifth trip, he was confronted by a deranged old man who jumped from the shadows and demanded, "What the hell are you doing?" He was holding something dark in his hand, so Ray assumed it was a weapon with which to slaughter him. "Get out of the way," he said as rudely as possible, but his mouth was dry. "You keep going back and forth," the old man yelled. He stank, and his eyes were glowing like a demon's. "Mind your own business." Ray had never stopped walking, and the old man was in front of him, bouncing along, the village idiot. "What's the problem?" came a clear, crisp voice from behind them. Ray stopped, and a policeman ambled over, a nightstick in hand. Ray was all smiles. "Evening, officer." He was breathing hard, and his face was sweaty.